Hey everybody, welcome to the Blue Collar Beer Gentleman. I'm Chris. I started this channel because I'm a fan of craft beer and I'm on a limited budget, so I wanted to demonstrate it's possible to enjoy good quality beers without having to break the bank. So the beers that I review on this channel usually come in around the $2 price range, and such is the case with today's selection. I paid $1.99 for this 12-ounce bottle of Lagunabaja from North Coast Brewing. North Coast is a San Diego brewer. Those of you who are unaware, San Diego has more breweries in their county than any other county in the nation. So at least here on the West Coast, San Diego is sort of the haven of beer, in much the same way that Milwaukee is, or St. Louis, if you're from the Midwest like I am. This is a Mexican-style dark lager. Quick information about Mexican-style dark lagers. After the War of Independence in 1821 in Mexico, German and Austrian immigrants settled Texaco. Maximilian II became emperor in 1864 and brought his love of Vienna lagers to Mexican brewers. What usually makes a Mexican lager very distinct is that it uses flaked maize. Apparently that's something you don't normally find throughout other, I'm guessing even throughout the rest of Latin America. You don't encounter flaked maize. It seems to be very, very specific to Mexican brewers. I have reviewed 6 North Coast beers, giving them all a 3.92 average. Here's the information regarding this. This has a 5.5% ABV, which is very typical of a lager. The only reason I know that it has a 5% ABV is because Untappd tells me that. There is no ABV on the bottle. That's going to cost you, North Coast. Anybody who watches this channel regularly knows that I have a real problem with that. That's part of being a responsible brewer, is letting your consumer know what the ABV is. There are some of us out there who are very specific and very knowledgeable of how much we can hold, how strong a beer we can handle, and at what times we can handle what said strength. And when you don't put an ABV on it, you have failed. You have failed as a brewer, and I'm not happy about this not being on there. And it is going to cost them points. No matter if I love this beer, if I hate this beer, it doesn't matter. Not having an ABV is going to cost them points. So, according to Untappd, it has a 5% ABV. Typically, Vienna lagers come in between 4.7 and 5.5. Can't find Mexican lager details because Mexican lagers are basically Vienna lagers with flaked maize. 30 IBUs, once again, according to, 19 IBUs, once again, according to Untappd. 18 to 30 is typical for Vienna lagers. I had only one friend on Untappd who has reviewed this, given it a score of 3.75. 2,437 on Untappd have given it a cumulative score of 3.56. Beer Advocate only has 29 rankings, giving it an 84 on the cumulative score, which on their scale is good. The average score, according to them, is 3.84. So there you have the ins and outs of that. That's the history of Mexican lagers. They are Vienna lagers that use flaked maize. And I'm checking one more time just to make sure that I didn't miss an ABV on here, and I don't see it. And I'm looking all over, and that's not cool. It's not cool, North Coast. Don't do that again. Okay, it's not often that I just tell somebody flat out, don't do something or do something. Well, put your ABV on your beer. Personally, I think it should be against the law to sell a beer without putting an ABV on it. Kelly, my man, if you're watching, there's one more cap for you. All right. I am going to be using my Sam Adams Ibex glass. Those of you who are familiar with this but unfamiliar with some of the features, everything from the etching in the inside of here, down in the base, to the in and the flow out of this bulb shape here, complete with the tuliping edge, all has purposes and reasons. If you'd like to go to my video, which one day I'm going to be able to get the job done and be able to link up to it, but I go over in detail most of the facets of this. The one that I have not gone over just yet, and I wanted to save until the end, is this little nub right here. I'm going to see if I turn this around. Yeah, now you can kind of see. You can see there's just this tiny little nub. There it is, kind of sticking out up top here. The deal with that is specifically for the purposes of enjoying the bouquet. So when you want to take in the bouquet on a beer and you're drinking out of one of these, turn that little nub towards your nostrils and you're good to go. Okay, this is pouring almost a It's pouring a rather coppery color. Quite honestly, this kind of reminds me of Michelob. I'm going to describe that as high carbonation. Lots and lots of carbonation. Of course, that's kind of what you'd expect from a lager. The head seems substantial and at least semi-resilient, although the bubbles seem to be popping rather quickly. Let me give this a quick beard wipe, see what I come across. Malt, mostly, almost exclusively malt. Let me use the little nub here, stick my schnoz directly in, see if I can encounter anything else. A lot of malt. I notice sort of a hay kind of aroma. Yeah, very farmy, very hay. I'm smelling the corn, that's for sure. The flaked maize, you can definitely smell that. In between hay and corn, anybody who's ever worked, if you've ever worked the cornfields, you know that hay and corn start to create this sort of a gestalt aroma between the two of them when they combined. That's kind of what I've got here. I've got that corn, hay, corn aroma going. So I think this must have been like farm fresh when they used the flaked corn. All right, well, we've got the description otherwise, except for the flavors, so I'm going to quit yapping my flap and get to drinking. Cheers. Nice and malty. You can definitely tell they use lager yeast because the malt is there, but it's also mellowed and tempered. I don't think any other yeast out there that I personally have used for home brewing. Now there may be different varieties, but lager yeast always seems to temper the malt even more than the hops. Like you could have a hoppy lager, but you can't have a super malty lager, even if malt is all that comprises it, because the malt always seems to be tempered by that yeast. It is kind of roasty. I'm getting sort of a roasted flavor to it. I think they did roast the malt. Well, they had to, because, I mean, look at the color of this beer. So this is obviously roasted malt. That was a stupid thing to say. Sorry, everybody. But yes, they roasted the malt, and that roast did come through in both bouquet and tongue. I'm going to describe that as actually a low mouthfeel, not even a medium low. There's really almost no mouthfeel to it. Lagers are not known for having exceptional flavors. They're good for being nice, refreshing, crisp beers for you to enjoy, but they're not. It's not often that a lager's flavor is noted. It's more the other tenets of it, like how refreshing it is, how great the carbonation is, how resilient the head is, things like that. And as you can see, the head is already gone. So there is no alcohol burn to this. With a 5.0, that's pretty much what you would expect. Actually, this is a good Mexican lager. I've had other Mexican lagers. El Charro at Creek, at the Tunea Creek, remains my favorite. But I still got to say, this is a pretty good beer. I would have given this a 4.0, but it doesn't have the ABV, so it gets a 3.75. Serious about that ABV business. So, anyway, gang, there you have it. Normally a 4.0, 3.75 because they're missing the ABV. $1.99 for a 12-ounce bottle of Lagunabaja from North Coast Brewing. There's something, okay, there's, no. Oh, and one more thing I wanted to just point out real quick. Lagunabaja, apparently, that is, you see the whale down here? It's apparently the course that the whales take from north to south or south to north along the western coast down into the Baja Peninsula. You can look that up if you'd like. I meant to look that up a little bit further. They mentioned it on the brewer's website. I did not go and do any further investigation. For that, I apologize. But all in all, this is a good beer. I recommend it, especially if you don't need to know the ABV when you're drinking it. Well, guys, if you like this video, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And until next time, drink good beer and don't break the bank doing it. Cheers.